Hi there. I want to talk with you today about something that I have struggled with my entire life. Um, I call it Failaphobia, and of course, that means fear of failing. I know everyone deals with insecurities and nobody likes to fail, but my condition, I guess you'd call it, is more an emotional response to things that other people might just look at as a challenge. For me, they become really traumatic. And so I noticed this as I went along in life, and I came up to things that just really shouldn't have been that hard. There were some things that were really hard that would naturally evoke quite a bit of, raising the blood pressure and just an emotional response. But for me, what I started noticing was that I would come up to something and I would start panicking. It was like a panic attack, although I've never had those in other areas, I have in this. So, for example, many years ago, probably about 21 or 22 years ago, I was just becoming acquainted with Sam, who ended up being my son in law, and he was living in England, as was Sharnessa. They were both attending the same Bible college over there. And so Sharnessa told Sam that I loved editing things. So that involved, since they were in England and he couldn't just hand me a paper, that involved me getting his work, his whatever he was writing. That involved him getting that to me somehow, and then me working on it, and then somehow getting it back to him. So we were talking on the phone one day, and he started telling me, okay, well, I can send you my paper by attached file, and then you open it in an email, and from within the email you can open it and access it and start working on it. Okay, I was fine up until then. And then he said, and then what I want you to do is just save it as an edited file and attach it to an email and send it back to me. Okay, there was this immediate panic. It's unreasonable because it was way beyond. We're just talking about attaching a file to an email and sending it to him, but I just feel this horrible panic, like it just kind of rises up in my neck and feels like it's going to choke me, and it's just extremely unsettling. And so I told him as calmly as I could. I said, I don't know how to do this. And he says, well, I'll show you, or I'll tell you how to do it. And of course he walked me through it step by step, and I was able to do it, and then I've done it thousands of times ever since then. But it's that initial figuring out how to do it and feeling like I don't have any help, when indeed Sam wasn't going to just say, oh, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, you just have to figure it out and do it. He would never do that. And I would have known that in my mind had I thought it through, but something takes over at that moment. It has happened hundreds of times in my life. Some of the things are more difficult than other things, like, for example, just learning how to use a computer. I had a big fear of that, even though I had my sister Kathy there to help me learn things step by step, and she was a wonderful patient teacher and never made me feel like I was the idiot that I felt like I was. Still, that feeling rose up in me many times. And then this whole thing of speaking. Now, that one is actually a valid fear, as I understand it. Someone has said that people's number one fear is speaking. Their number two fear is dying. So the way this one particular person put it was, so that means that someone would rather be in the casket at a memorial service rather than being the one giving the eulogy. So I thought that was kind of cute. But I knew I had something to share early on in my homeschooling days. I knew I had some good things to share with homeschooling families. And so I ended up somehow getting connected with people that were putting on the homeschool convention in Washington State. And I had my workshops all figured out. I knew what I wanted to talk about. I had handouts made up. And this particular gal that headed up this convention had a way of keeping track of all the people that were signing up for it. So we would be in touch by email. At this point, there were no chat groups. This was way early on. This was like in 1985 or so. And she would let me know how many people were signed up for each one of my workshops. So my first fear was that nobody would sign up for my workshops, but then as she kept informing me how many people were signing up for them, I think I was doing 3 that year. It was my first year of doing workshops, speaking at them. Then my fear became, oh my goodness, people are going to show up at my workshop and they're going to be expecting something and I'm not going to deliver it. They're going to be disappointed. So I knew I was speaking at the Thunderbird up in Seattle, right across from the airport. And what I imagined was these big, huge chandeliers that would, like, one of the chandeliers at the Thunderbird would have filled up my living room. And it was like, 5 times higher than our ceilings in our home. And so I imagined myself walking in there, and what actually felt like is that I was imagining myself walking in from the back of the room to the place in the front where I was going to be speaking. I actually envisioned these humongous fans, like blowing me backwards, like keeping me, it was like hurricane force, actually forcing me to stay at the back and not be able to even come up to my place in the front at the podium where I was going to be speaking. Now that was just fear. All that was fear. And I knew that but it was really debilitating. And the closer we got to the day of the convention, the more fear I got. One day I got out of the shower and I was really freaking out while I was in the shower. I had thoughts to myself, and I was really having a hard time with this morning in particular. And so I ended up looking in the mirror at my just washed hair and my no makeup face, and I actually reminded myself of my second grade picture where they had my mom. Somehow I had not gotten the message to my mom that we had pictures that day, so she had tried a new hairstyle, and it didn't work, so she just kind of ran some water through it. I had one tooth that was, had not come in yet, and this was the worst picture I've ever had. But as I looked in that mirror, I saw that second grade Barb, and I actually felt like that second grade Barb as far as what I was, thinking I was going to do. And the thought came to me is like, what in the world are you doing? Who do you think you are going to this convention to speak? And I was just actually crying and freaking out as I was looking at my face in the mirror, just feeling like, you're not a speaker. And then, right at that moment, as soon as I said that, I felt like the Lord said to me, just in kind of a lighthearted, amused way, he says, and I didn't hear this audible voice, it was just an impression, a really strong impression I had, where he just said, I thought that when you gave your life to me, I was going to be the one that got to decide what you were going to be and how I was going to use you. And I said, okay, you got a good point there. However, I'm not up for this. I can't do this. I'm dying every time I think of it. I mean, it was a sickening feeling every single time I thought about the convention that was coming up. And this was hundreds of times it had already happened, and I was just not knowing. I didn't know what to do with this. And so I said, but I can't do this, Lord. I'm so glad that you are thinking I can, but I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. I don't have it in me. And he said, well, the problem is that I'm trying to pour new wine into an old wineskin. And I said, okay, well, it's the only one I've got. He said, why don't you give me your old wineskin, and I will give you a new one. And so then I can pour my wine into you, my new wine, ways I want to use you that you've never thought of, and you'll be good. We'll go a different way than what you're doing right now. And so I let him. I actually gave him my old wineskin of my heart, and he then was pouring new wine into me, and it was amazing. I never feared speaking again. He actually took all that fear out because he had given me a new wineskin and I had received it, let him give it to me. And so then from then on, it was more, every time I thought about it, it was completely different than all the other times I had thought about speaking. It was more of a excitement. There was a little anticipation, but it was nothing like this feeling and fear of failure that had just gripped me each time I thought of it. So I still remember even pulling into the parking lot at the Thunderbird up in Seattle. And still, I just kept thinking, this is going to kick in any time that I'm going to start freaking out. And I never did. Even all the times I spoke before groups of 100, 200, another time was 500, and I think the biggest group I've spoken to was 800. It was all the same. I was just excited. My heart was to get there and to share what was on my heart with the people that had come, and I lost my fear of people not liking it, because the Lord showed me that I'm not speaking to everybody. It's like when mail comes, the mail isn't for everybody. Mail is addressed to a certain person, and what I would be sharing would be mail addressed to the specific people that God had wanted in that room. If there were some there that somehow got there and this wasn't really for them, well, that wasn't my problem. My only mission was, should I decide to accept it, was to just speak to the people that had come to hear what the Lord wanted to impart to them through me. But unfortunately, the Failaphobia still existed in other areas where something was totally new to me. Like when I was writing my senior high home design formula book, I started realizing that this was a much bigger project than I had thought it was. But I remember one day I had worked on the computer for a while, and I got to a point where I got overwhelmed. I didn't know where to go next. That was just something I came across a lot, but this one time it was really overwhelming me, so I went and I curled up basically into a fetal position on the couch, and I just said, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. Why did you call me? I mean, I felt like he had called me to write this book, but I said, but I'm not enough. I can't do this. I don't have what it takes to write this book. And there again, I just felt like, first of all, he just held me. He just comforted me like a daddy would comfort his little girl. And I just felt like he said, the reason I'm having you do this is because you're available. And of course, I did also have a few writing skills that would be useful, but I didn't feel like they were nearly enough. And the organizational skills and everything that went into putting this thing together, how to put such a big picture together, I just did not feel like I had what it took. So at that point, he assured me that he had called me to do this because I was available. And then he would then equip me to do the job in the way that he wanted me to do it. And indeed, he did. So that doesn't mean it was perfect by earthly standards, but it was what I had to give. And I've had lots and lots and lots of people tell me that it has blessed them, it has freed them up, it has completely changed the way they've homeschooled their high schoolers, and improved relationships with their kids because the focus wasn't on academics. So I know that God has blessed it. And then also webpage. I ended up getting into that. Again, Failaphobia, but the Lord helped me create a website, and he brought people into my life. Sometimes he uses people, often he does, and then other times he just equips you. If you will just sit still and be quiet before him and with him, and just give him time to speak to you. I could actually give you hundreds of examples of this, but I think the last one I'm going to share as far as examples was in homeschooling my kids, even feeling like I had any talent or any ability or even any just motherly tendencies to be able to do it, and teacherly tendencies. I saw my own sin, and I saw that my sin affects my kids. So like if I yell at them, if I'm impatient, that affects them. That isn't just my own sin, it actually affects them. So one day I was particularly frustrated and disgusted with myself, and I ended up just going back to my room and threw myself on my bed and just started bawling. And I said, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how to do this. I'm not good enough. I'm not patient enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not consistent enough to be homeschooling my kids. I feel like I'm just going to ruin them and fail miserably. So there again, Failaphobia. And in this one, I just felt like the Lord consoled me and said, well, this is going to be schooling for you too, then, isn't it? You're going to get on-the-job training. So I didn't get to just get away with, oh, I'm too impatient, I'm too dumb, or I'm too this or that. But the Lord actually wanted to show me how to do it one step at a time and lead me to the cross where I had to take my flesh and nail it to the cross with him, so that he could deal with my impatience and my disrespect and my just all the different failings that I had regarding it. So homeschooling actually became education for myself and my own character, my heart, and my mind, along with doing the same in my kids, because you can't impart to your kids what you yourself don't have. And I knew I lacked miserably, but that's the first place that the Lord can actually use us and speak to us and change us and transform us, is when we recognize that we don't have what it takes. That's where he can come in and help us. So then one day while I was homeschooling, one of my kids, and it would have been with all of them, but at one point, this was the thing that kind of would happen each time, is the child would be very frustrated with something, either something they were trying to do with their hands, make with their hands, or something they were working on, like as far as a worksheet. And the child would get very frustrated and angry and just kind of panicking, like, I can't do this, I can't do this. And so I would then go to the child and say, honey, I'm not actually expecting you to do this by yourself. You haven't had instruction in how to do the whole process yet, or you just need instruction several times over. So I want to do a quick aside here and say, never, ever, 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 ever say to your child, I've already shown you how to do this. Why aren't you remembering that? Or why aren't you getting it? I just want that phrase to go completely out of your vocabulary, whether you homeschool or whether you just, have your kids at home. And this could be something in any part of everyday life that you're showing them how to do. So back to that then, what I said was, you need to know that at any point along the way, if you do not know what you're doing, if you have forgotten what to do and you need help, all you need to do is just say, hey mom, I need your help. That's it. And I'm going to come and help you. Okay? So then, even as I said that to my child, the Lord turned that back around to me and said, do you think maybe I'm saying the same thing to you? That you don't need to panic, you don't need to freak out or feel traumatized when you're reaching a point of failure, when you're getting to a point of feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing. I want you to reach out to me and ask for help right then. Don't wait until you're all freaked out and traumatized. Ask me right then. And there have been so many times that he has shown me what to do, even right then. Sometimes it was asking somebody to help me, putting somebody in my mind that he knew could help. Sometimes they even ended up like contacting me, or I would see something, some kind of a resource. He's just shown me in so many ways, but he just wants to take that panic out, like right now, and not have you even go through that. It's just a total waste of time, energy, and emotion. So that is the Lord's word to all of you who struggle with failure or insecurity of any kind, is that the Lord wants you to allow him in, to ask him in at the moment you're having a struggle. This is something I still deal with somewhat, but not nearly to the extent that I used to, because I remember sooner to go to him. So the takeaway value that I want you to get from this is three things. One is, I want you to speak life to people around you. People have spoken life to me so many times. Even my daughter Carly Ann, who is on the other side of this video right now, she has spoken life to me, and even being able to do video, because I did not think I had any business doing it. I'm 68, I'm an old woman, who's going to want to listen to me? And she has just spoken life to me, and in practical ways, in emotional ways. She's dealt with lots of breakdown, where I was like kind of having a breakdown, and one day she took me to get coffee and go to a park, a little beach thing, and we just talked, and she just kind of, I call it, she talked me down off the ledge. I wasn't going to commit suicide, but I might have committed suicide for this project of doing any of this kind of stuff, but she just gently worked with me and spoke life to me. So then a second takeaway value is to not focus on your limitations, okay? Because God is not limited by your limitations. So of course, if I wanted to be a basketball player or a snow skier, obviously that's a dream that I'm going to need to lay down, because I'm not going to ever be a basketball player or a snow skier or an Olympian or anything like that. That may be a dream for somebody else. It obviously is for many people, but not for me. So it needs to be within reason of what is on your heart to do. Like, what do you have a dream to do? What is your desire? What is something that's in your heart to do, but you just keep feeling like, oh, I just couldn't do that. When really, if you had the Lord helping you, and if you laid down your insecurities before the Lord and asked Him, Lord, I need you to show me, what do I do with this desire? Is this something that you want me to follow? And then let Him show you. And He will. He's glad to. That's the kind of thing that He does. So don't limit yourself. Don't focus on your limitations. Focus on asking God, what does He want to do with the desires that are in your heart? And let Him just sift away any that are not of Him, but at the same time, keep the ones in your heart that are part of what He wants to do with your life and your relationships with people here on this earth. And then the last thing is, I want you to remember that God is always with you. He says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. And that especially means in the times when you need Him most, which is when you are trying to do something that's hard or that you feel is impossible or just inconvenient. It can be a lot of different things that stop us up. But remember that He is always with you and wants to help you through that thing. So I just want to thank you for listening, and feel free to share anything with me in the comments that are things that you have dealt with, ways the Lord has helped you overcome, or if you need prayer for something, for overcoming something. And also especially for just getting rid of that whole thing of Failaphobia, if that is something that you deal with as well. So thank you so much for listening.